Welcome to another episode of This Is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast. Season 5, Episode 42. Your safe space to discuss sports, politics, social issues, and even religion. Where we will take it all very seriously, but not too seriously. Another episode of Two Idiots Discuss Sports, this time looking to the ice. The NHL season is upon us. That means it's time for my buddy John to come back on the podcast to discuss our two favorite teams, the league in general, and we might even discuss the band of our childhood, Rush, going back on tour. Thank you to my longtime listeners. If you are new to this podcast, please like, subscribe, thumbs up, 5-star, write a review, send to friends and enemies far and wide. This Is Why I Don't Vote podcast is on Patreon. Please consider supporting.
Act 1. Two Idiots Discuss Sports. The 2025 to 2026 NHL season is upon us.
It's hockey time in America. I have to then bring on for another episode of Two Idiots Discuss Sports my buddy John, Boston Bruins aficionado, superfan number one. And before we get started, John, you said that you wanted to compliment the Boston Red Sox for making the playoffs and getting close to winning a series this year. Is that what you told me that you'd like to say?
No. What I wanted to say was the biggest choke job in modern history by, of all things, a base running error by not listening to the third base coach who was trying to send the Red Sox runner home, and he didn't listen or watch his coach, and that cost him the game. And then they just looked completely flat in the third game. I think it just took it all out of them. They actually used a pitcher who was from here in Richmond. He went to James River High School in Midlothian.
Oh, I did not know
that. Yeah, so there were two rookie pitchers for each team, young pitchers for the third game, but they just looked deflated, and they should have been. So that was an epic collapse. They wouldn't have beat Toronto anyways, but it still would have been neat, as always, to beat the Yankees, but didn't happen. But at least they got there anyways. So I had to get that out of the way. But yeah, at least they made the playoffs. I don't think anyone was expecting them to, so that was kind of cool.
And if I recall, they made the playoffs in a pretty spectacular fashion. I think they had to win all of their games and somebody else lost, and they had, I think, the second to last game or the last game? It was like a home run.
Yeah, well, he I think it was a double off there that got him in. But they were a fun team to watch. They definitely had big swings and in their sort of stretches throughout the year, and they really lost to some teams in pockets of the season that they should not have. The teams like Pittsburgh, Baltimore, that really hurt them. But young team, a lot to look forward to. So hopefully it'll be much improved next year. I love the manager. I think if the Yankees had that manager, they would never lose. But we all know the Dodgers are going to just win every World Series until the end of time anyway. So
I'm hopeful that somehow either Toronto or Seattle can give them a series and maybe even pull it out. I want to believe that. I think you're right that everybody wants to believe that. We don't want to see this Dodger mania consuming baseball over the course of the next 6 to 8 years. But unfortunately, that looks like that's our fate.
Well, if it continues, I would expect some sort of player strike, but we will see.
We will see. Now, I prefaced this episode with the fact that it's now NHL time. It's hockey time in America. And we're obviously going to talk about hockey, but as many of the people who listen to this podcast know, I am a huge Rush fan. I know you are a huge Rush fan. We immediately texted one another when the announcement came out that Rush was going to have a limited tour, a limited number of cities, limited number of dates, and we were excited about which date we were going to go, which city, which date. We all registered to get our code for the pre-sale for the tickets. How did the pre-sale work out for you, John?
About as well as the Red Sox base running abilities in that game, too. This is strange. I had a premonition about this. I don't know if I had dreams or some sort of thing. I've been reading a book about Geddy Lee, great book called My Effing Life. I'm not the fastest reader. I read too many things at once. I'm the kind of guy that could barrel through a magazine in like 30 minutes. But when it comes to books, I'm a little slower. And I just kept having these thoughts of, would they ever get back? What drummer would they use? Michael Portnoy, Michael Mangini, one of these guys, and above all things, a female drummer. And lo and behold, they announced they're coming back. But yeah, I tried to do the ticket thing too. The code didn't work. The ticket prices are absolutely astronomical. I don't quite understand that. I think all Rush fans are really shocked because not only are the tickets expensive, but you have to take off work to go see these dates in some cases. You have to fly to get there. You have to, have meals. You have to have lodging. So it's looking like it's actually going to be quite an endeavor. If it's something, I just was shocked they didn't go to more cities, but maybe it's something they'll add down the road. I don't know what the plans are. They haven't said no to that. They sort of left it up in the air, but I would hate for people to buy tickets and lodging and all this, and then Rush comes to a town much closer to them. So I think it's just a little strange.
I tried to use the code. I told as many people that would listen, and it's probably no more than actually listen to this podcast, but I tried to use the code. I'm working, of course, because that pre-sale's during the day, and the code doesn't work. I try it again. It doesn't work. And I was like, I don't have time for this shit. It's not like I'm 22 years old and I don't have anything else going on, and I can just sit in front of my computer and try this code over and over again for an hour or two. I tried it. I think I tried it 2 or 3 times, and I was like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. And within a few hours of that pre-sale going live, all of the complaints started to come out in these social media channels that literally a nosebleed seat in Los Angeles was like $304. And if you've ever been to the Staples Center, you know that a nosebleed seat is a nosebleed seat. It's not a good, it's, yes, it'd be great to go to the show, but I'm not paying that much money to sit in that kind of seat.
Right.
And
well, I am a concert snob, so to speak, but something that'll make you sick. Patrick, I may even have my old concert stubs because I keep a lot of my tickets of when you, me, Mike, and Rick, I believe, went to the Richmond Coliseum to see Primus open for Rush.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe the tickets were $17.50 a piece. So what does that say?
It just...
Times are a-changing.
Literally. And what's so sad about this is bands like Rush are going to be the end of an era. When they stop touring, when a lot of these bands stop touring, you're not going to have any more arena rock. That's not what the young people want. I mean, their arena shows are all these kind of like R&B, or I don't even know what you call it.
A lot of country.
Yes, country. There aren't any more like arena shows for rock and roll. And I mentioned this on a podcast that I think, unfortunately, rock and roll could be like the blues or jazz in that in 25 or 30 years, it's still a very beloved American genre of music, but it's not played. It's not popular. It's only something that you can go and see or hear in niche places. So I want to go and see Rush. I want to be able to enjoy this before we're at an age where we can't do it anymore, the travel, and there's no bands that we would want to go to see anyway. But if I have to pay $750 for a decent seat and then travel to Los Angeles or to New York, or I'd love to do it, but Cleveland or Toronto, and it's a Tuesday night, I've got to take off work, and then I've got to pay for the flight, and then I've got to pay for the hotel accommodations. I mean, you're talking about spending $4 or $5 grand to go see Rush over the course of 48 hours. When we saw these great concerts, and I'm sure $17.50 was a lot of money to us when we were 19 or 20 years old. Probably not even that old. I think we were still in high school. I I just can't stomach spending that kind of money. And I'm not one of these fucking drones. I'm going to say it. I'm not one of these fucking drones who's going to go out and spend $4,500 on a single ticket to go see a Taylor Swift or whatever country fucktard is the flavor of the month. I won't do that. There isn't a band out there that I'll do that for. Not even Rush. So I have that bad taste in my mouth as well.
Yeah, and then keep in mind, though, $1,750, any of the four of us that day could have washed our parents' car, cleaned the kitchen, whatever, and our parents would have given us some money to buy the ticket. That's $1,750 does not equate to thousands. So it's not, the scale is completely off. But I do want to say this, any other Rush fans out there, especially if they have kids and you can afford it, please take your kids to go see Rush. I mean, it's something they will remember for their entire life. There's nothing really comparable out there. So, I do want to say that if people can swing it and it makes sense, certainly don't stretch yourself thin. But for the younger generation, I would love for them to experience it.
I would too. I'm hopeful, and maybe naively so, that there's going to be a rock revival in this country, whether it's from the 70s, the 80s, or, the genre that you and I grew up in, that early 90s stuff. I'm hoping there's going to be a revival, but the way popular culture seems to be developing, it doesn't look like a revival. It looks like it's going to be one of those back catalog things that, again, you hear on Sirius Radio, the jazz channel or the blues channel, and the people who love it, but it's just not a popularized genre of music anymore. So,
yeah, hard to do a revival when the cheapest ticket's $295.
Yeah, it really is.
So,
I wanted to let you give your 2 cents on how you felt about the Bruins coming into this season and where you see the Bruins going now.
Well, if they play like they played against Tampa the other day, and all 4 goals for the Lightning were based on turnovers in their own zone, they're not going to go very far at all. But a vast improvement over last year. You could tell just from day one, completely different. Have a new coach, Sturm in there. Systems are better. Swayman's playing better, the goalie. Everything looks, the players are where they're supposed to be. Obviously, the power play and the penalty killing has got to be, well, you can't be any worse than last year, but That has to be much improved. But maybe a stretch from, we can get into it, but I mean, they still have some stud players. Keep in mind this year for the NHL, this is an Olympic year. And the Bruins, so a lot of games in short amount of time, because the NHL is not going to give up their games at all.
Right.
We know that the players union wants them to, they will not do it. So they are condensing everything, which leads to injuries, people being tired, overuse of players. But the Bruins have a lot of players that are going to be in the Olympics for all the world teams. That's another thing. So we'll just see. That was a disaster last year for the 4 nations when McAvoy got hurt, but let's just hope none of that happens this year.
When it comes to the Detroit Red Wings, who are now in first place, and again, we're not talking about 40 games into the season. It's so early. But the first game Detroit played Montreal, I didn't get to see the entire game. I believe it was the end of the second period into the third period, and Detroit looked like that team that had all that youth, that had all that speed, and didn't have the wherewithal to play together. They had stupid turnovers. Montreal went from, I think it was 2-1 in the beginning of the third period. All of a sudden, it was 4-1. I mean, it was 2 goals in 2, 3, 4 minutes. And I just said, fuck this. I actually turned it off because I was so frustrated that here's a team that 2 years in a row had an opportunity to make the playoffs. They lost games that they could have won at the end of the season. They don't make the playoffs. And to me, I just said, that's a team that doesn't look like they're learning. It looks like a very young team. And it looks like a team that if they can't play any better than this, then Yzerman, the GM, there's going to be a ton of pressure on him to start moving some people and trying to get draft picks to go with another youth movement. Whatever talent's on the team is not going to be held on to. Todd McClellan goes in and basically has one of those come to Jesus talks that you usually only have 20 or 30 games into the season, and basically asked them, like, who do you guys want to be? And it was a big article in The Athletic about it. Who do you guys want to be? How often are we going to do this? How long are we going to do this? If you think you're going to be a great player, you've got to start acting like a great player right now. If you think you're going to be a very good player, you've got to start doing it right now. If we're going to be a team that just makes mistakes and throws games away, so be it. But I don't want to be a part of that. Well, That woke the kids up. They went to Toronto and did the same exact thing that they did against Montreal. They had a couple of stupid turnovers in the second period. They're down 3-1 now again. And I'm thinking, okay, they're done. I stopped watching. They come back, and I believe they win that game 6-3. They just explode in the third period, and they've carried that momentum. Now, again, what are we talking about? 7 games? 8 games? But you and I, in just casually getting ready for the podcast, you saying, look, that's such a young team. They've got so much youth. Yes. And if they could actually start to put it together, if these kids could realize I could actually be a very good NHL player, if not a great NHL player, this team is dangerous. You don't want a young team to start thinking, man, maybe we're really good.
Right. But why, if you notice in hockey, compared to how it used to be, it's the system teams, the plug-and-play setups with solid goaltending. That doesn't have to be the best in the world, but best when it counts. We can go back years here now and see this. We can look at Florida. We can look at the Lightning from Tampa Bay. We can look at the Dallas Stars, who always do well, Edmonton, Vegas, the Hurricanes. All the teams that are system-based always make the playoffs and go far and do well. Doesn't mean they always go to the Stanley Cup or win it, but they're always right there in the talk, right? And the teams that don't have that are sort of flailing around here without a true identity, they never go very far.
Right.
So I think that's the problem with a lot of these teams is they're sort of, they certainly got to be envious of the Floridas, the Tampa Bays, those kind of things, and Vegas and so on and so forth. But you got to have that in this league now, top to bottom. You guys got to start in your minor leagues. You got to draft that way, college, and you got to bring the players up that way, or you're just not going to be successful.
Well, this is an interesting point that you're making because most hockey fans are casual hockey fans, and they don't understand how, very much like building an NFL team or a college football team, what are you going to do? I went to Tennessee, so I root for Tennessee. They're looking for a lot of guys that can move up and down the field. They like to play very fast on offense. So they're looking to have a lot of wide sets, and their offensive linemen have to have a level of athleticism because they're not getting the normal break between plays. They're having to run down the field, and they're generally taking between 5 and 10 seconds off the play clock before they're snapping the ball and going again. That's a stark contrast to a team that says, we're going to control both lines of scrimmage. We're going to run the ball on offense, and we're not going to allow the run on defense. There are a number of different ways that you could construct a football team. Most casual hockey fans don't realize the extent to which these NHL teams have the same types of goals. We're going to push the puck. We're going to be a very fast team. We're not going to allow people to come in through the neutral zone. So we're not going to be looking to push the puck as much as we're going to be looking to forecheck and make it hard for people to enter our zone. We're going to attack the middle of the ice. No, we're not going to do that at all. We're going to be more of a dump and chase team because we've got so many bruisers. Nobody's going to want to go down there and cycle with us. All sorts of different ideas on how you can run a hockey team. But you're making a great point that if you don't have a vision, not only at the NHL level of what you want to draft and then how you're going to coach those kids up in your minor leagues, you're going to have a harder time if they're going to step in to some sort of system at the NHL level and they've got to learn it. You don't want them to learn it at the NHL level. You want them to be ready to accept a role. It's going to be faster. It's going to be more difficult, but they already know systematically what they're doing and what their role is.
Yeah, they have to. Otherwise, it's never going to work. It doesn't mean they're a bad player. It just means that if you don't fit in the system, it's kind of pointless. But I mean, we can go through. Obviously, we can do a podcast later, right before the playoffs. But I think we should run through what teams will do well and make the playoffs from the different divisions. You know, we could start in the East if that's okay with you.
Yes, and then, like we talked about, I think that. So I prefaced our call before we started the podcast with, are we going to be in a paradigm where it's going to be Florida versus Edmonton again? Are there teams that are poised to knock these two off their perch? You mentioned some of the injuries that Florida had. I'm concerned about Florida. I don't care if they make it as a 2 seed or as a 7 seed. If that team is healthy when they make the playoffs, they're a problem. Yeah, they know how to win. They don't need home ice if they don't. Well, it's not make or break. I mean, the biggest thing this year is the Olympics, and obviously that, again, we talked about that sort of, dealing with players who already have injuries and things of that matter. But the Panthers will not win the division. I think Tampa will outright win it. Okay. Still have Coach Cooper, still have, a very balanced team, one of the best systems ever, strong goaltending, no weak links, great defensemen. It doesn't mean they can oust the Panthers in playoff time, but I'm just saying in the regular year, I've got the Lightning taking the Atlantic. I think the Maple Leafs will be second. The Panthers third, I think, because Barkov is not back until April. Tkachuk is not back until December at least, but they have a number of other leaders on that team, Brad Marchand, the list goes on and on. They're going to have a few young guys step up to help. And then I think, remember in hockey, it's the top 3 teams from each division in that conference. I think 5 are going to come from the Atlantic and 3 from the Metropolitan. So I have Ottawa going in there, and then either the Red Wings or Bruins as the last team in. And then on the Metropolitan, Hurricanes will take that. Carolina Hurricanes, depth system, solid coaching, same thing, no weaknesses, until they play Florida, of course. Right. They can't beat them. Boring but functional hockey, but it works. I think they're far and away going to take it. I put the Rangers or Devils in second place. One of them is, I don't know, just one of them I think will make it or not, and then the Capitals in there as well. So that's what I think is going to happen. I guess anything could happen, right? But I think I think the Atlantic side of that conference is more exciting. I agree with that. Tampa Bay, Toronto, the Panthers. Ottawa's not the funnest team to watch. The Red Wings, I think it's going to come down to that last team getting in, the Red Wings or Bruins. So you don't see the Islanders. The Islanders are done, right? Well, I just anything can happen, certainly, as we know. I mean, it's a crazy sport. But, you got a couple solid teams in the Metropolitan, but it drops off a lot. Now, of course, it matters who you play, who's on your schedule, too, obviously. But I don't know. I like what I see out of those Atlantic teams. The problem is they have to beat each other up all year, too. That's right. So there's that. So way more star power, I think, in the Atlantic. 100%. Way more star power. I can't argue with your picks. It's interesting now to see what Pittsburgh's going to do. Are they going to move on from these players that Crosby, Malkin, that won them the Stanley Cups, that built them back into a power in the NHL. It's hard. I know it's hard because as a Red Wings fan, I saw these guys. It was almost like I couldn't believe that they couldn't play the same way anymore. And it's hard for a team to move on from them. But you didn't mention Pittsburgh, rightfully so. I don't think that they are sniffing the playoffs until they figure out what they're going to do with guys that, from an NHL perspective, are geriatric.
Right. Yeah, and a new coach in town, but until you're at that, I mean, even the Capitals, they can't beat the Hurricanes in the playoffs. There's no way. I don't see anyone in that Metropolitan giving the Hurricanes a hard time whatsoever. On the other side, definitely, the Hurricanes can't beat Florida, and they know it. But who knows? This is a different year, but the Hurricanes, far and above, are the best team in that division.
I agree with that
estimation.
And you made a good point, and I hadn't considered this. This is why I like to talk to you about hockey. And it was a big deal last year when they had the face-off. These teams,
the Four Nations.
The Four Nations. Thank you for thank you for correcting me. But people playing for their country, but you're playing by North American or Canadian rules. And you mentioned, oh yeah, well, here we go. Another year, another tournament. It's the Olympics this year. So These guys are going to be playing in another tournament for their country that has more teams, that's in a different part of the world. The only saving grace for the Four Nations tournament was, well, at least it's in North America. These guys aren't flying halfway across the world to go play in a tournament. Well, they're going to do that now, and it's going to be a longer tournament, and who knows how that's going to impact, if not just health, but you mentioned this, people are just going to be tired. The NHL won't give up any of their games. The Olympics is such a big deal to so many of these guys that they're not going to conserve their energy properly for the last 20 to 30 games of the NHL. I mean, if you have a chance to win a gold medal for your country, you're going to do it. So you're going to have a bunch of guys who maybe are not hurt when they come back after the Olympics, but are going to be so much more prone to getting hurt because they're going to be fucking exhausted and they're going to be playing multiple back-to-back games.
Yeah, but also think about it. By that point, when the Olympics are there, a lot of these players know they don't have a chance to win the Stanley Cup that year. They're going to want that gold medal. So they're going to put all their eggs in that basket of trying to get that gold or silver medal if they know they're completely out of it to even have a sniff at a Stanley Cup. You know what I mean? Yeah. So rightfully so. They should do that for their country. If it's their only shot ever or once every 4 years, it'd be hard not to.
Agreed.
Agreed. But we can talk about the other division. The Central Division, I think the Avalanche takes that.
Agreed.
Far and away. Dallas, still complete stud organization. I don't know why they can't advance in the playoffs. It's just absolutely bewildering to me. I'm going to say Winnipeg with USA's starting goalie, Connor Hellebuyck, third. Again, they're terrible in the playoffs. And I would say the Blues or Utah rounding out fourth.
Utah, you're going to... Okay.
The Blues or Utah. Utah they picked up a lot of good players in the offseason, even got some from Florida. So I think one of the two of them gets in. The Pacific side, I've got Edmonton or Vegas winning that side. You're lucky because of the time slots. You get to see these teams more. I mean, there's nothing like watching Edmonton or Vegas play. Especially Vegas got Mitch Marner now from Toronto.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what a stud team. Their best defenseman, Alex Pietrangelo, is gone for the year. He's a hip surgery. But, Vegas still has Jack Eichel, Mitch Marner. I mean, what a fun team to watch. I put the Kings at third. Anze Kopitar's last year. Again, all these people are going to be in the Olympics. It's going to be super fun to see them. And then I will say maybe the Canucks round out that division.
Okay.
But I think the playoffs are going to look eerily similar in terms of which teams advance. We can talk about that, obviously, when it comes more down to it, when it actually – we can do an episode then, but it's still, like we said, it's amazing year after year after year how these teams are just so good. But unlike a lot of other sports, again, you don't have to have always the best players. I think Edmonton, honestly, is like a goalie away, a stud goalie away from having won some of these Stanley Cups. I really do.
I agree with that.
What are you going to do? They put all their eggs in the basket of, McDavid and these Draisaitl. Kind of, you can't do it all. So regardless, I think it'll be fun, a fun season and all. I'm really looking forward to the Olympics. I think it's going to be a ball watching that. But I don't like the way that they have to play so many games, these compressed schedules. It's really unfortunate. But I don't know. Separate the men from the boys, maybe, or you better have some good AHL teams to pull guys up. It'll be very interesting, to say the least.
So I'm going to comment on that because of this list that you made. Vegas has made some good moves. They are a really good team, but they're also an older team.
Yeah.
That may hurt them in the long run because you need a young team. I almost feel like I am going to make this analogy. I look at it like Oklahoma City. Such a young team. They were really well coached in what they wanted to do, how they wanted to play. And that style of play that they had lent itself to a team that was young and could run around. I'm interested to see how that's going to play out in the NHL when, like you said, you've got the Olympics, you've got guys who are going to go there, they're going to go all out, then they've got to come back and they've got to play a very condensed schedule in a sport where you could argue there are too many games, it's already too condensed, and you're even condensing it more. So that's not going to favor, of course, an older team like Vegas. I wish I could say that I disagree with some of your choices. I mean, maybe Minnesota, I'll say it correctly, or Chicago. But I think you're right that these teams that are good, they're good at being good. We're not seeing some of these teams fall off and then other teams step up. They know what they want to do. They know the kind of players that they want to have in order to get that done. And so it's hard to say, no, this is the dark horse team. A dark horse team right now, in my mind, for either conference is a team that we think is going to finish in third place or is going to be one of the wild cards, and it turns out they win the division. It's like if New Jersey came and just exploded and they won, right? The division. They supplanted Carolina or something like that. Other than that,
yeah, keep dreaming.
Well, I agree, but that's
like saying we're going to get rush tickets for $50. But Vegas reminds me. Vegas is like the Carolina Hurricanes of the the Western Conference. That's what they remind me of. But it'll still be tough series. But just like I said last year, for some reason, compared to other sports, hockey's first round of playoffs is always the best. I don't know if it's just because they're knocking the shit out of each other everywhere and they just don't care, or it just, without fail, it's always the first round that is the best. I don't know why.
I agree.
It just is. It was last year. It was the year before. It's hard hitting. They kind of settle in after that, but it's all going to be fun. It's going to be just as good as it was last year. I still think Florida can get it done, but man, that's really hard to win 3 cups in a row. But if there's a team that can do it, it might as well be them. I don't see anyone knocking them off in the East except maybe Carolina. But I think Tampa's going to be awfully strong this year, so it'll be a lot of fun. the Wild West will be just that. Any one of these teams could do well. So the Oilers are starting to kind of get that Buffalo Bills thing going on. If they're going to get a cup, they need to hurry up and get it done. You follow me on that?
I do. And I agree with you that the Achilles heel to that team is their goalie. I don't know if they need to go and get somebody who maybe has fallen on hard times, coming back from an injury, something to that effect. But it's the same thing. It's the same problem that Dallas has with what's his name?
Ottinger?
Yes, Ottinger, who's a great goalie from the United States of America. I'm not going to sit here and speak ill of the man. It is just a strange phenomenon that if it's a 2-1 game, he seems to be on the wrong side of it. If it's a 1-0 game, he seems to be on the wrong side of it. They can't get over the hump. You've got an Edmonton team who can get to the Stanley Cup, but they just can't get over the hump. And I think that's their weakness. It's the goalie. I'm concerned in the most optimistic way, but as a sports fan, that we are going to see a rematch of Florida, and maybe not Edmonton, but probably Edmonton in the Stanley Cup. And I don't know that that's good for the sport when you have the same teams face one another 3 years in a row. The problem with Florida is they know how to play their game, and they're so hard to beat when they do. And I don't care if they have 4 players out in February if all 4 of those guys come back by late March.
Yeah.
Because
we said it last year. They're the team that has 10 or 12 captains on one team. Now, granted, last year, remember, Zach Hyman got hurt, and he won't be back for another 3 months for the Oilers. That was a huge loss. That really sucked. I want to see these teams at their best, right?
Agreed.
So, but yes, if Florida gets in, or when they get in, they know how to get it done. I have no problem with those 2 teams playing again. As long as they're the 2 best teams, who cares? They got players I love. They got systems I love. Who doesn't want to see Connor McDavid flying around, or Draisaitl, all those great defensemen against the, Sasha Barkov and all the systematized Florida Panthers weapons there. I'm fine. I mean, I can understand where some people would think it's stale or whatever. The best hockey is the best hockey for me. So I'm fine with whatever that is. I know it's not going to be Boston or Detroit. So, but whatever it is, as long as it's good and it's exciting, I'm fine with that.
Well, it's not going to be Boston or Detroit this year, but that's what we want. We want to get these teams to get, particularly my team, Detroit, with all those kids, get a little taste of the playoffs so they can start to mature and become a team that has that type of winning mentality and playing in a winning system like Florida or like Edmonton. Well, look, John, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Maybe, and I say maybe, you and I will see one another in the same city that Rush is playing in, and we will attend one of those shows.
Well, I'm starting to think there's either that, or we could probably go to a Game 7 Stanley Cup for much cheaper.
What a sad reality. What a sad reality. All right, buddy, I appreciate you coming on.
All right, thanks a ton. See you.
Act 2, Epilogue.
I did look at Rush tickets. I know John looked at Rush tickets. The seats that I wanted were over $2,000. The seats that I was reluctantly willing to accept were still like $1,200. There's a part of me that just wants to buy up some of the tickets and then try to sell them for more. I just don't want to participate in that shit, particularly over a band that has meant so much to me for so long, to engage in scalping the tickets in some cruel, desperate, transactional manner. Having a conscience sucks. This is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast.